when you get a word from God, sometimes seeking confirmation is disrespectful. It's kind of like when I was married and my husband would tell me something and I'd be like, "Are you sure?" And he'd be like, "Why would I even tell you if I wasn't sure?" And I find that God is the same way, where God tells us something, but we second guess it. Whereas if we just ran with it, we could be much farther along than continuing to question. And when you're in the will of God and you're in the right place and you give up your life, because I could have had a nice life in Puerto Rico, just chilling on the beach every day. But when you give that up just to be in God's perfect will, he will come through.
Welcome to the Published and Paid podcast, where we share book, business, leadership, and life lessons in 20 minutes or less to help you build a thought leadership brand and business. My name is Jasmine Womack. I'm a former middle school language arts teacher turned seven-figure entrepreneur, and I am glad that you are here. Let's get started. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Published and Paid podcast. I am super excited because pretty much we are relaunching after like a 2-month hiatus. And so I'm glad to be back. And I am so glad to be back with an amazing guest today. We have Lisette Carter. Lisette, please introduce yourself and let us know who you are, what you do, and about your books.
Thank you for having me, Jasmine. I have to tell you, this is one of the best podcasts of all time. I have listened to it and it has pierced my heart in so many ways, and I've learned so much. So thank you for having me on it. It's such an honor. But yes, my name is Lisette Carter. I'm originally from Boston and now I live in Pittsburgh. I am a new founder of Rookie Publishing, which is a publishing company that helps new authors, more so on the conservative side, launch their books and learn how to build a business around that, and also a content creator for tired business owners.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And especially with especially that content creator part. Listen, because I know so many just executives and business owners who they just don't know the content creation part, and they're like, I don't have the time. So the fact that you have really leaned into that is amazing. So can you let us know about your books? I know that you have a publishing company now, but you're also an author. So can you tell us a little bit about your books and your journey to bringing them to fruition?
Sure. So my books are based around, the branding is around a rookie theme. So for example, like starting, I have an athletic background, and in anything that you learn, it's a process to learn things. And I really like that rookie element to it because everything in life is you're just learning as you go. And so I have 3 books. One is called Rookie Mommy, Rookie Wifey, and Rookie American. And in each book, I felt a prompting from the Lord to write each one. The first one was out of frustration because I couldn't find practical Christian how-to books. And my mission is to help people understand that the things that you blame God for are Satan's doing. And so a lot of people confuse the two. Well, God wouldn't have made me sick if he didn't want to teach me a lesson, or God does that. But that is where the deception comes in. And that's where a lot of American Christians don't understand their authority when it comes to overcoming thoughts, or, overcoming those things that the devil puts in their heads. And so for me, that included motherhood, being a wife, and also when it comes to the condition of our nation. And so in the first book, I wrote a book on motherhood, but more so the mindset behind that and how to overcome the mindset of the lie that Satan has put in your head that you're not going to be a good mom because of the things that you had gone through in your life. The second book is where I partnered up with you, where I found you, thank God, because my first publisher, he, not to be all over the place, but my first publisher, he was a hybrid traditional publisher. And he never taught me marketing. And that's what I wanted. I needed somebody to teach me how to market the book. And all he did was publish and take a royalty. And I had a really big problem with that because I don't think you should take a royalty on a piece of work that you're not continuing to help me promote.
Mm,
That's just me. So, and I get that's the business of it, and maybe at one point I'll do that, but I just it to me at the time it didn't make sense to do that, especially being a rookie author, a new
right.
author. So when I found you, I think I had followed you for quite some time because you were teaching people how to develop a book, a business around a book. And I think we went into training, I want to say for about like 6 to 8 months on I already had public speaking training, but you were doing like really good training on how to do a talk in a minute, and you would partner us up, and it was awesome. I learned so much, and then you had us go on social media every day for like 30 or 60 days, and that's where I really learned how to be consistent on social media because I did not like it at the time. I thought it was just a huge time waster, but you can use everything as tools to build anything if if you're focused enough. So that is where I learned how to build a business, and with that book I made the most money because I learned that there were two ways to make money in this business is public speaking or bulk purchasing. And so that is where I got my feet wet with that, and I did really well with that book. The third book, I was in prayer about it, and I felt the Lord tell me write a book on government, on the basics of American government. And I had already had a big interest in American history, and I found that the public school system was teaching a different history because of what my stepdaughters were learning. I didn't understand it at the time. And so I had done a lot of deep dives, and I felt the Lord tell me, write a book on government and politics, just the basics. Like, what are the three branches of government? What is at the heart of socialism, which is to remove God from a nation? I became like enwrapped in that. And when 2020 happened and we saw all of the churches shut down,
Mm,
setting aside, I have a lot of differences. I'm kind of like an anomaly when it comes to the political aspect of things, but set the politics aside, I saw all of the churches shut down in 2020, and all of the pastors that were going to like freedom rallies weren't doing altar calls. And
mm,
that really bothered me because people were really scared in
mm,
2020. They
mm,
were really hurting. And I felt the Lord tell me, start a podcast. So I started a podcast, and we started to do deep dives on social justice issues, on like the realities of Christopher Columbus, laws that were happening, things that were happening in Massachusetts at the time. And I remember somebody having me listening to my show and saying, I want you to come in at the rally and do a talk on the history of Massachusetts. And I did. And I said, I will only have that platform if I can do an altar call, because that is all that matters to me, is that people make it to heaven. And I asked the Lord, Lord, just give me one person. I brought a whole suitcase of Bibles. There were about 4,000 people there. About 2,000 people put their hands up. And
oh,
so, yeah, it was amazing. And from then on, I turned it into a ministry, and I called it the Rookie American. And so I wrote the book along with that, with everything that I learned from you on how to self publish. I was able to do that. And I would give my book away. I sold a lot of it, but I used the book as a ministry. And so I would just go from rally to rally preaching, despite the political differences. I said, this is what the people need at the time. And because of what you taught me with public speaking, the podcast, I had it for about 2.5 years, and I was found by a conservative show host on TikTok, and he added me to his roster. So we built out a studio. I had the show for about 6 months where I was on prime time with him. And then 6 months in, after 11 years of being married, my ex told me he didn't want to be married anymore. And so that was a hit. We had a daughter, and I also raised his three daughters. That came out of nowhere. And there were a lot of different aspects and issues. I wanted to fix things. I needed to figure out how to prioritize. How can we prioritize this? How can I fix this? But when somebody's out,
right,
when somebody's checked out, they're checked out.
right.
And so he said, well, except you guys got to go. I'm not going anywhere. You guys go back to Puerto Rico, because my family was in Puerto Rico. And I was like, wait, what about your daughter? And he was like, I'll just call her. I can call her.
That is just so, first and foremost, I'm so sorry that you had to experience that because that is devastating on
Yeah.
a lot of different levels. And I'm gonna withhold my personal, comments, but it's just like, it's just a shock at how people can do that. I experienced something similar in my first marriage, but that's another conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, to be completely frank, it was confirmed to me not to marry him. Like the Lord
Mhm,
told me not to marry him
mhm.
in the first place. And what tends to happen is, and I hope this reaches somebody, is that the moment you include sex in a relationship prior to marriage, it clouds your judgment.
Absolutely.
So that was one of the things that clouded my judgment. And he's a great guy, you know, he has a good heart. But I think at the time there was just a lot of confusion for him. And also because I was doing things on a federal level and I was interviewing people that were, you know, high up like in Fox News, like I was interviewing a lot of people. There was also a lot of threats that were coming our way.
Mhm.
And you know, I was disowned by my family. I was getting called a race traitor, all kinds of things simply because I said pastors need to stand up and what's going on is not right. And our, you know, we have a say in our government, not our government. Like our government, that's the whole point of the Constitution. And so because of the lack of understanding our laws and why this country was founded, there was just a lot. It was like a lot of misunderstandings. And I was really cast aside from all my family and friends for speaking up. And so when we went to Puerto Rico, we had to lay all that aside. We had to lay all that pride aside. And my daughter and I went for the year. My family, thank God, they opened up our home to us. And we went from living like to a really big house with the really nice cars and the money, you know, the bank account full, to moving into a one bedroom and I was sleeping on a futon in my kitchen. And so it was a very humbling experience. And we all know where those battles really come from. It's not the people, it's just what they're battling with.
Right, right.
And so we were out there for a year and I love Puerto Rico. I grew up there. However, I knew that's not where I was supposed to stay. So I went into prayer a year ago in December, and the Lord said, move to Pittsburgh. And there's a ministry out here that I absolutely love that I followed. They helped me through my divorce. They just opened their fourth church in like 3 years. They're moving very quickly, fivefold ministry. The wife, she helped me a lot through my divorce. And when I came here, I said, Lord, you got to come through. I don't know anybody in Pittsburgh. I don't have, you know, I was working remote at the time from a company in Massachusetts. And when I came here, the second day I was here, somebody gave me full tuition for private school for my daughter. And I was,
Confirmation that you
yeah, I
made
was
the right
like,
move.
yeah. So after that, everything was cake. It was so easy. I got denied in apartments everywhere, with the exception of this one town that happens to be the best town to live in Pittsburgh, in the hills with the country. And it's just beautiful. And so I really saw even the little things. I live on the second floor and I thought to myself, wait, I don't have a man. How am I supposed to bring up my furniture?
Mhm.
And every time I came up, my furniture was here on the second floor.
Wow.
And that's how I knew God was in it. I see him all the time in these little things. And so we had a lot of restoration in Puerto Rico, but we have a lot of healing here. And we know that because we are in God's will. When God tells you to go and you go, I learned my lesson the first time. When God tells me to go and to do something, I do it immediately because I know there's a covering on our life and he'll take care of it.
Amen.
So yeah, that's where we are now. And this summer, during that whole thing in Puerto Rico, I do want to point out that my ex did come to me and he repented, he apologized, and we're good friends now. That's the father of my child. I would never speak ill of him, especially
Mhm.
to her. So we're on good terms. But you know, I told him in the beginning, like Jesus died for you too,
Right,
and you need to figure out why. And
right.
it's not my doing to do so. So I didn't really take that split. It hurt, but I didn't really take it personally because
Personally.
I knew that it was an issue with him and how he grew up. And so yeah, and so in the summer, my job was like, we're gonna have to move your position in house. You're gonna have to find something else in January. And for the last 2 years, I had been publishing and creating content for conservative companies on the side. And someone was like, you should really turn that into a business. And I kept going back. I thank God that you still allowed me to log in. You know how you can log into your to your program, because I would constantly log into that to keep taking notes on, okay, this is how I'm publishing other people's work. And I was doing it for free at the time. And I went out on faith. I said, let me start a publishing company. And I heard this gentleman say, whatever you're supposed to do in life, you can do it without taking count of the time. So if you can sit and do something and you forget about the time and time just flies by, that is what you're supposed to do. So one day I was creating content for someone and it was like 3 a.m. And I was like, Wait, that's what I'm
This is
supposed
the
to do.
thing.
Yeah. So right now in January, when I officially launched my business, the second month or the first month, and with one client, I made more money than in my job in 1 month.
Amen.
Yes,
Listen,
this month, last week, somebody signed a contract with me that paid me one client 2 months of work that would have been
listen.
in my job. So now I'm just trying to figure out, especially with your podcast, on like how to hire, how to find the right people to work with. That is the space that I'm in. I have an editor that reached out to me that happened to be an editor for one of the best preachers in America, which is the ministry I'm under. She said, I love your content. Let's work together. I need a designer. I was like, well, I need an editor. I suck at editing. And it turned out she was working for the ministry. And so
Wow.
that was a divine, there's just so many divine connections. And now I'm, helping formatting and design their books as well. And so it's just a blessing to see everything fall into place. And it's not that I don't want people to think that like when you're in God's will, that everything, all the blessings just come. You have to work. Like you have
Yes.
to prove yourself. And the way that I believe that the way that I got that first contract was because I decided that I was going to work, whether I got paid or it was for free. From the time I dropped my daughter off, 8, I was working from 9 to 3. Then from 3 to 8, I was focused on my daughter. And then from like 8:30 to midnight, I picked up another day. I
Right.
had to. I was doing that for about 2 weeks and then I got that first contract. And now I find myself doing that all the time, but I don't feel tired because I'm excited about it. And the people that I'm working with, I mean, there are people that were a lot of J6ers get a lot of flack, and some of them are really nuts, but some of them actually went to the Capitol to pray and they got arrested, thrown in jail, and tortured. And their stories are insane. And so a lot of the conservatives, I'm working with them because they were slandered in the media, they were misrepresented. And I enjoy being able to tell their stories freely without having any repercussions. And so I feel like that's on my heart to do. And they're using it as a ministry, they're using it to bring people closer to Christ. So that's the whole shebang, Jasmine. That's the
I
whole
mean,
thing.
that's amazing. I mean, because you shared a lot. Like you started out with a traditional hybrid publisher, you saw no royalties. You and I
Mhm.
worked together. This was some time ago, like back,
Yeah.
it had to be back in like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I believe I might have published your book, but I was
Mhm.
providing publishing services. And I also remember you had gotten access to a self-study, publishing course that I sold back then. You went through some life challenges with your marriage, with relocating to Puerto Rico, then moving to Pittsburgh, having God confirm your move for you, to being laid off about a year ago, right?
Mhm.
To going full time in your own publishing company and helping others create content after having done it professionally, for others in their businesses. Now you're doing it in your business and you're charging for it. So you were able to leverage some of the same things that you learned and so from our time working together, and some of the same things that you've done in your business to now actually help others do in their businesses or do for others, and you're making double or triple the amount in one contract than you were making in your monthly, in a month's worth of pay on your job.
Mhm. Correct.
And one of the keys that I hear you saying is that you use your work as a part of ministry to bring others to Christ,
Mhm.
to tear blindfolds off, so to speak, and to bring others to Christ.
Correct.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, where do you see things go, and where do you see things going now in like the next 6 months as you are focusing on team building and scaling your business?
Well, right now I'm taking account as to inventory as to what do I do physically every day that actually brings money in. So I want to promote my business. Most of my business comes through social media or word of mouth. But I find that a lot of those things that I spend a lot of time on does not bring income in. So, but I enjoy doing them. I know the money maker is in publishing. So I want to be able, right now, I'm asking for more divine connections when it comes to more design, like a design team, people who can format, stuff like that, that I can shop out. But I need to be able I wanna work with the right people now. I don't wanna find out I'm not working with the right people. I don't
Yeah.
wanna hire the wrong people to do these things, and so I'm taking my time to do that, but I do see it scaling rather quickly so that I can do the things that I enjoy the most, which is creating. I love designing and creating. And so if I can just find the right people to work with when it comes to formatting, design, things like that, everything else will be smooth, and just learning how to charge appropriately
Mhm.
without overextending, because I still want it to be an affordable service, because new authors need affordable they need I mean there are new authors that I've worked with that they paid 10 grand for publishing services, but they didn't have the creative liberty to do anything. They had
Mm.
like a certain amount of edits, and these are people like one of them is a conservative beauty company. Well, everything needs to be an aesthetic for her, and that is not understood with some publishing companies. And so they broke off the one of them broke off their agreement, and they didn't refund any of the money, and she was 10, 12 grand in the hole. And I went and I published her book for free because I was like, I can't have this done to you. And I believe that was a seed that I sowed
Mhm.
to get more of the business that I have today.
I've heard horror stories upwards of like people paying 20, 30, 40, 50,000 and not getting what they paid for. Like
It's
it's
so bad.
insane.
And they're Christian. They're like professed Christian companies that are doing this too. And so I hate to see that. I want to be, an affordable thing, but I also want to be able to scale.
Yeah.
So I want to go in and start designing and scaling with the right people. That is a nerve-wracking it's a nerve-wracking thing for me. But I don't know if you said this or someone else, but being a publisher is just being a broker, really, at the end of the day. And all you're doing is finding the right people, brokering, and then you're taking a cut of the profit. And so I like that. I like working with people. I like keeping their creativity intact, their creative flow intact, and just being able to work with the right people. That is what I'm seeking out right now.
Amen. Amen.
Hmm.
In closing, to all of our listeners, who may be encountering pivots, whether it's in life or in their career, or maybe even in their faith, what kind of word would you like to leave them with?
Follow when you get a word from God. Sometimes seeking confirmation is disrespectful. It's kind of like when I was married and my husband would tell me something and I'd be like, "Are you sure?" And he'd be like, "Why would I even tell you if I wasn't sure?" And I find that God is the same way, where God tells us something, but we second guess it. Whereas if we just ran with it, we could be much farther along than continuing to question. And when you're in the will of God and you're in the right place and you give up your life, because I could have had a nice life in Puerto Rico, just chilling on the beach every day. But when you give that up just to be in God's perfect will, he will come through. Do what he has placed on your heart and run. We don't have time. Jesus is coming back like tomorrow. We don't have time to wait for the perfect moment or confirmation. We don't have time to wait on other people. You have to run. When God tells you to run, run.
That is so true. I mean, and that's such a good word to close with. I've been reading the Bible in a year.
Yeah.
And so I've been reading like the app through the U version app. It has, different chapters or different books that you have to read every day. And so one of the things where you said, like basically seeking confirmation is disobedience because God has already told you something to do and you know it, but you're doubting it. And what I've been reading in the word was the Israelites' constant doubt is the
Mhm.
constant doubt is the reason why a 40-day trip turned into 40 years. It was all doubt. It
Yeah.
was the constant doubt, the constant questioning, the constant lack of faith, even though they saw him part the Red Sea, even though they saw him do all of these things and brought them
Mhm.
out of Egypt. Because they encountered a bit of discomfort, they doubted everything, even though they'd seen things with their own eyes. And so I think that the word that you left was absolutely powerful. And to everyone listening, take heed. You know when God is speaking to you, you know when God has placed something inside of your spirit. And that's where faith comes in. You take it and run with it instead of asking for two, three, and 10 confirmations of what you already know you need to do,
Mhm.
right? even though it might feel scary, even though it might feel uncomfortable, even though it might feel unfamiliar, move forward anyway and do it scared. So thank you so much, Lisette, for coming on. Can you let everyone know how we can reach you, how they can contact you, and where they can find you?
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at Lisette the Rookie, Lissette, the Rookie, or you can find me on rookiepublishing.com, where I'll be revamping my site soon, but all of the information on content creation. And if you're a new author in publishing, you feel like you haven't really had a voice in the last 5 years, you can find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, see you on the next episode. Peace, love, and impact.